Hello, Pixel Fight Club members. This is Marie with the review for last Monday's contest, which was a clear lucite plunger in a shower stall. I know that may have presented a challenge, and I was just delighted to see the many ways that you were able to come up with something creative out of something so mundane. I was also happy to see that most of you went ahead and did some step transformations. Most of you used the plunger picture. Some of you may have used some other stuff, but nevertheless, I was impressed with the quality and creativeness of all the work that you came up with. We'll start here with Christine's. And I thought, this came in real early in the week, and I thought, wow, how Christine has embraced every bit of the image that she was given. She's using the plunger handle, she's using the top of the plunger handle, she's using the tile floors, and she's made it into a flower, which is very, very creative. I love the way she's colored things, especially the pink in the middle of the flower. And apparently pink was the way to go, because we'll see this pink in another image later. It felt a little unfinished to me. And I think, Christine, you could improve on this if you would give it a background. And let me give you examples of several that I've pulled from my unsplash.com folder. We could put it on a bamboo background. And because the background is a little dark and I have blurred it out, I'm going to add a curves on it just so it brightens it up just a teeny bit so we can see it on these backgrounds. Just several different ideas. And one of the things that I like is Adobe Paper Texture Pro. And here's what I came up with on a whole stack of textures. But any of these photographic textures also add a great deal to your image. It just makes it look a little more finished. Another thing that you might have thought about trying was making your flower into a smart object and using puppet warp on it. It would make for an image that was a little less stiff, but that's personal preference. The other thing that I thought that may have made a difference, may not, and maybe you could try it both ways and see what you thought, would be to add a little drop shadow on the flower petals and the stamens here before you went ahead and did the step and repeat on them. I think it defines the petals a little bit more. But nonetheless, Christine, I'm very impressed with the creativity and the wholehearted embracing of the challenge given you. Next we come to Russell at the Hollywood Bowl. He's done two-step transformations, one with the handle and one with, I don't know what this background is, but he's made it look very, very realistic. A little shading on this may have made it look less one-dimensional. I just saw this now, so I haven't had a chance to play with it, but let me see what I can do. Let's make a soft light layer on here and get a brush and make sure, let's say I want black, and I need a nice soft edge brush here, and maybe we could perhaps shadow this back here, and then maybe grab a soft edge white brush and throw something back here. Now this is just rough and dirty, And I generally go ahead and blur these before I do much with them, so I'm going to try a little Gaussian blur. And I want to tell you, I don't generally put both of these on the same layer. There we go. We have, it gives it a little more dimension, and we can always lower the opacity of that. And here, let's look at it with and without. It may not be the look you're going for. I love the fact that every single bit of this has been built. It looks like Russell has used the fiber filter here to make his rock stage. He's used pieces of photograph to make his band shell. The sky is the cloud filter. He's done something with the grass. It's all completely manufactured, including this little dancer on the stage, which was made in the program, let's see, I don't remember what I made it in. Oh gosh, one of the Adobe programs. I hate it when my mind goes blank. Fuse. So that's kind of neat that he has created everything from scratch. Looks like he did put a little drop shadow before he did his step and repeat, which is really nice. This particular image doesn't have a clear subject. Now the band shell is gorgeous, but one would think it would be the person on the stage. So I played with it just a little bit just to see what would happen. And so I tried something. I put the elf girl in a little bit bigger. I know it isn't to scale, and it looks way too much. But just adding a bigger subject, make it more prominent in the scene, made quite a bit of difference, I thought, in the two images. The other thing I tried, I thought might be nice, would be a group of dancers. So I threw out duplicates of all of them. Now I did color the woman's clothing just so it would show up against it a little bit more. But these are suggestions that I would make if you ever do something like this again, just to make it more clear what you want. And if we look at this elf and girl, we could go ahead and make that a little bit smaller still. And even if we did that, she would look more realistic even if we did that. So kudos for taking the time to make all these individual elements for your picture. And then we have retired guy shooting his 007 bear, or the Russians are after the bear, or whoever the bad guys are this week. And you know my main complaint, it's a little dark. So I threw a levels adjustment layer just to make it a little bit brighter so I could see what was going on. And then I thought, oh no, the horizon isn't level. So Jim, whenever you got water, I gotta say, you really need to make that water level, otherwise it'll all run out of your picture and then you'll have a dry riverbed to look at. So I'm going to transform this and tip it just a little bit. Of course, if we level the river, it messes up the bear and the helicopter and stuff like that. But sometimes it's these little teeny tiny touches that people look at and think, there's something that isn't quite right with that. I don't know what it is, but it seems off to have something like that. But the concept is done very well. I like the way the the rocket is actually coming down and it should hit the bear right in the middle of his back. The fact that the helicopter is bearing down behind his parachute, and the funny part is if the helicopter gets very much closer, it's going to go right into the shroud lines of the parachute and they're both going to crash. But of course, I'm sure the bear has a separate parachute on his back that we don't see. A nice use of the step and repeat here with the plunger handle. I like the way that you've taken it off the round, that you've maybe made a 3D postcard out of it and tipped it over on its side and made it fit an image the way it needs to. You've even blurred it a little bit to make it seem like it was spinning. So you took the extra time after you did the transformation to make it fit in your image. I love the way the background here is all blurred out, as it should be. If one was taking this photograph, you'd have to use a long lens, a telephoto lens, and the telephoto lens would indeed blur out the background and the clouds too. While it showed the bear and his parachute mostly in focus, the rest of it would be out, and Retired Guy has managed to do most of this very well. Then we look at Sherry's, and I have to say I wavered a long time between Sherry and Helen and Amy to decide which one I really liked the best. And Sherry did a marvelous job turning the plunger into these lovely, delightful pink bubbles. I really thought it was unique and different, and she, the elf, leprechaun, whatever you want to call her, is really enjoying you see the joy in her face and the enjoyment and the magic almost from these lovely bubbles. I was very disappointed though that there wasn't any step and repeat visible in the photo. You've done a marvelous job making bubbles and changing their color, but I didn't see a step and repeat. So it wouldn't have to be a major part of the photo, but I would have liked to see it there. So I played around a little bit and I added a shamrock, step and repeat shamrock tattoo, thinking that might help. I see now it should have been blue instead of green or black instead of green, but nonetheless a little something like that would have taken it over the edge for me. I also made a hair comb out of the plunger. I didn't like that as well as I liked the tattoo, but it was still an idea, and I think probably I should have taken the hair comb and did a perspective warp on this so it would look like it wasn't sticking right straight out of her head. But it does give you a thought about what I wanted. Photographically, the composition is wonderful. The subject is, if you divided this into an imaginary tic-tac-toe grid, her eyes would be on the top line of the tic-tac-toe grid, which is called the rule of thirds, and that's a very powerful point to have it on. Her ear would be on another third line or very close to it. We have room for her to look into the bubbles and to enjoy them. Even though her eyes are closed, you need to make room for people or animals to have room to move or to look into. So I'm going to say this was my second favorite, just because it didn't have any step and repeat in it. Then I looked at Helens, and again, it's dark. I can hardly see it. So I cheated a little bit, and I made a duplicate layer. Actually, I made several duplicate layers here of the original, and I changed them to the screen blend mode. and they really helped for me a lot, so I could see what was going on. I could see that the windmill blades were made of the shower stall. I like the more saturated colors myself. I also added a brush of white across the bottom in a soft light that makes, to me, the hills a little more defined. If you don't like all that brilliant color, you could add a hue and saturation level and tone down the saturation a little. But I think sunsets really need that bright colors, and my preference is the brighter colors and the lighter colors. To me, this doesn't, but I keep my screen dark, so I can't, part of it's my fault. Photographically, this is a very pleasing composition. We again are looking at rules of thirds. We've got, or nearly so. We could perhaps, now I take the crop in just a little bit. Whoops, that isn't what I wanted to do. Come on. There, now it's showing the rule of thirds. If we take this crop in, and since there isn't anything happening on the left, and we can't see what's happening on the bottom, well, I guess we can't go down too much from the bottom. Well, I could do it this way. We can get that exactly on the rule of thirds. Not sure that it would help the composition. It certainly wouldn't hurt it. It's just a thought. I like the way the horizon is very low. We've got this clearly defined into 3 layers of colors. We've got our yellows and blues up here, our yellows and oranges here, and our reds and blacks down here. The tree serves as an anchor for the windmill to keep it kind of grounded. It just adds a little interest and kind of points back to our subject, and the birds around it are just lovely. This was my favorite this week, even though it's a little dark. I'm letting Helen have the kudos for favorite. And last entry was Amy. And this was the other one I said I struggled over. I love the old postcards. I love the look on this woman's face. And when I first looked at this, I have to say, I thought this was one of these old-time folding wooden rulers. I don't know if you remember them or not, but when I was a kid, my dad had 2 or 3 of them around the house, and each section was probably 6 inches long, and it was 3 inches thick, and it unfolded, and you could make it out into a single stick. And I said, oh great, she's taken a folding ruler and done the step and repeat on it. And gosh, I wish she'd used the plunger in it, until I got it onto the computer screen instead of looking at it on my phone. And when I zoomed in to look at it, it's not a folding ruler, it's tiles from the shower. Really kind of great. I was impressed. It has a drop shadow on it, the step and repeat. And I would have perhaps, and it looks like it's laying on top of the postcard with that drop shadow. Perhaps and I haven't tried this, I don't know how it would work. One could match the shadows on the rule or on the step and repeat to the shadows on the image, and boy, that's going to be hard. There isn't much. I guess the light is coming a little bit from the top left here across her face and his face, so the shadow would do something similar, and I'm not sure that it even could be accomplished. Although I like this, and it's whimsical and lighthearted, I don't think it told as strong of, it didn't tug on my emotions the way the sunset did. Maybe the story isn't as strong, but it's an excellent job, and I can hardly wait to see what you do with the postcard that I gave you for this week. So anyways, this week, with a strong fight between Sherry and Amy, Helen is our winner, and congratulations to all of you on your creativity and attention to detail. You're all getting so much better at masking stuff out and compositing that it's just really heartwarming. Have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you next week. And hopefully next week it'll be on Monday. And I hate it when my computer dies. I'm not ready to buy a new one yet, so I put in a new hard drive, hoping that would get me another 6 months before I have to bite the bullet and buy me a new MacBook Pro. Have a wonderful week. See you later.